Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Jeremy Jensen. He's the founder and CEO of Encore Search Partners, the biggest, best recruiting entity in Houston, correct?
Well, definitely not the biggest recruiting entity. We're the largest privately held direct hire search firm in Houston. So there's a lady that's been in the game. She just celebrated her 40th year in business, Sue Burnett, who owns Burnett Staffing.
Right.
She's definitely the biggest, probably the baddest, but I'm telling you, I'm the coolest. All right, Warren?
I love it. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, she's got about 75 employees. We've got 40, but she just has a big head start on us.
Yeah. They got a little running head start on you. Y'all started in 2013, maybe?
2013, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So how does one decide that one's going to do this and go into business for yourself? And how does that all work?
Man, I tell you, everybody's got their different journey. Me, myself, the reason why I wanted to be an entrepreneur, funny enough, is because I wanted to make more money than my wife. I'm divorced now, but I was married for 9 years and 1 day. But whenever I was engaged in 2009, she actually is 2 years older than me, and she's a petroleum engineer for a big major oil and gas company. She's still there. Right. And she was making about 40,000 more than me, right? Just because a little bit further in her career, and she was an engineer, and here I was just a little lowly sales guy, right?
Nice.
And so Mr. Macho Man said I got to make more money than her, and so I bounced the idea off of her about breaking off on my own and starting my own company, and luckily she was fully supportive of it. We decided that we were only going to live off of her salary, and that anything that the business made was going to be just excess. And I'm proud to say that we did that for so many years, man. And it really allowed me to take some pretty cool risks in the business and reinvest the profits. That way we could grow to what we've become today.
Man, that's super smart. And maybe luxury isn't the right word, but it sure is nice to have that backup income so you can actually invest in the business. And
absolutely. And it definitely wasn't the backup income. I'll give Lisa Jensen, now Lisa Wright. She was the primary income. I was the backup income for sure.
Yeah. You were the lagniappe if there was some.
Exactly. Right? Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. What a gift. So how did you decide to do this versus something else? Like what was your motivation?
Yeah, I was working for a 50-person pipe, valve, and fitting distributor called Gajeski Incorporated. And, I was the 25-year-old right-hand man to the CEO. I just carried his briefcase everywhere that he went. I gained so much insight into sales, operations, finance, IT, supply chain, business leadership, having tough conversations, forecasting, debt financing, right? Line of credits, right? That 1 year that I spent with Bob Gajeski really taught me everything that I knew about business in order to go start off on my own. And so, whenever I decided I was going to start my first company, which was an email marketing and lead generation business, I told Bob, I said, Bob, I'm still going to do everything that I do now for you, except instead of paying me as a W-2 employee, I'm just going to charge you $5,000 a month and be an independent contractor, and you're going to be my first client. And fortunately, he said, sounds like a good deal for me, Jeremy. So they were a client of mine for many years before we rebranded from Market Share Solutions to Encore Search Partners and kind of changed our business model in 2013.
Wow, that's amazing. And what a gift to learn, and then have a built-in client out of the deal too.
Man, I tell you, that's the number one, I think, secret to my success, where, a lot of people are saying, hey, there was a tremendous amount of risk. And to be quite honest, the business was kind of de-risked because there were already people that knew my work ethic, knew my quality of work, and knew my character, my integrity, and was willing to take a shot on me on day one. And so I walked into a pipeline and fortunately never had to take a pay cut, even in year one.
That's definitely not the norm.
Definitely not the norm. Well, I'll tell you, so there's a lot of people that have very successful corporate careers, and then they leave a salary, 200,000, 250, and then they go down to zero, right? That's a massive risk. it's easy to quit a job where you're making 65, 70 grand because you
Mhm.
don't already have the mortgage. You don't already have the boat payment, the lake house, right? Kids' college tuition payments. You see what I'm saying? And so,
Yes.
if I were to give any advice to emerging young aspiring entrepreneurs, I would say, hey, do it in your 20s, man. It's a hell of a lot easier than when you're 45, right? To walk away from stability, right? It's easier to take risks when you're early career.
I think it's brilliant. I was listening to, I believe it was Dave Ramsey yesterday in the car, and he said something similar, and it makes perfect sense. The problem is that as you grow older, you probably have more responsibilities, and as you make more money, you spend more money.
100%.
So, yeah, 25, you're lean and mean. You could get by with almost nothing.
Literally nothing. We just lived off of Lisa. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That's spectacular. Okay, so you morphed your business. What was that about?
Yeah, so, started the business in 2010. It was an email marketing and lead generation business. Grew it up to about 250 in revenue.
Nice.
It was a monthly recurring revenue component. I was charging about $22,000 a month at its height. And I just ran out of hours in the day. I was having to do the work in order to fulfill the client's needs. And so here we were expecting our first son, or no, I'm sorry, we had our first son in August of 2012.
Okay.
And my wife at the time was like, hey, I need you, right, to help out with the baby. And I didn't have it. I was trying to fulfill client needs. I
Hmm.
couldn't really delegate and elevate because I was the brainchild, right? Almost like an independent consultant, if you will.
Yeah.
And then I took a look at my client base and I saw that half of my clients were staffing and recruiting companies.
Oh,
And I was like, man, I think I'm in the wrong business. I'm sitting here providing a service for these folks and I'm charging them $3,000 a month, but they're making $50,000, sometimes $100,000 a month from the service that I'm providing. So that's why when I decided, hey, I'm going to go hire a recruiter and start offering recruiting services. And so I hired my very first recruiter on January 6th, 2013, did that for about a year. And then I saw how big the fees were. And I said, screw this, I'm going to get out of this game and I'm only going to focus on this. And so it was heartbreaking to inform clients that had been with me 2 years, 3 years and tell them, hey, I'm shutting that business down, but I'm still happy to support you for your recruitment needs. We just don't offer lead generation services anymore. So just completely did a full pivot on our business offering. And that was the growth catalyst that gave us the opportunity to scale for sure.
yeah. So do you have any regrets or learnings from that pivot?
I really don't have any regrets or learnings. There were so many people that were saying this is a real business, it's profitable, you could sell it. And to be quite honest, if I would have even listened to 1 ounce of that, we never would have evolved into what we are today. I mean, if somebody was buying something, that it wasn't a real business, it was me providing a service, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think that it would have just bogged us down. We wouldn't have developed into the 8-figure entity that we are today, for sure.
I think it's a pivotal point. People don't dare take the risk, or they don't know how to scale. So they don't really, I mean, if you consider a business something that could run without you, that produces a significant amount of profit, then you're right. You don't have a business, you're a service provider, or you have a job.
Yeah, I'm almost like a realtor, right? I mean, there's realtors out there that are making $500,000 a year.
Sure.
It's not a business. You're not a CEO. You're a service provider. You have a great living. Hey, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of CPAs, trust and estate lawyers, divorce lawyers. They make a killing, man. But without you, there's really no revenue generation, right? There's not a brand that you can monetize. And so I think that it's important for entrepreneurs to really see themselves as marketers and business developers, right? And then to hire a staff to fulfill the operational component, because then you can really just hyper focus on growth while you've got a process and a system that focuses on service delivery.
Yes, that's brilliant. Okay, so you switch. now you got this temp service. You hired your first, and apparently you hired actually a good person. So congratulations on that,
I
because
don't
that's
know. I mean,
another.
we've never done a temp service, and so I don't have
Or
a
I'm
temp
sorry.
service.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're a direct hire recruiting firm. So basically, companies hire us. So Warren, you'd be basically tell one of your clients who's the CEO of a, $10 million payroll processing company, hey, we need to call Jeremy to go poach some salespeople from ADP or Paychecks. That way we can bring some sales to our little small company. And so we work with a lot of small to mid-sized companies that are looking for salespeople, looking for executive leadership. But then we also work with quite a few enterprise level clients that are looking for engineers, health advisors, investment bankers, commercial bankers. 100K plus positions is really what we focus on. So we're headhunters. That's what we do.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to say temp service. What I
No
meant
worries.
was recruiter, but you got your first recruiter right. Right?
No, I mean, I tell you, that's another common misconception in business. It's almost like saying that whenever you become single, you got to get it right with that first girlfriend. I mean, all you got to do is just get a girlfriend, and then you learn what you liked about her and what you didn't like about her. And so with the next girlfriend, what happens? You kind of know what you're looking for a little bit more, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then with the third one, you kind of know what you're looking for a little bit more. And so, that first recruiter that I hired in January of 13, he worked for me for about 6 years, and he was a very serviceable, talented employee, but I wouldn't necessarily say that, he was a stud, right? When we hired him, he was a 300K biller, and that was the biggest we'd ever seen. Why? Because he was the first person. Well, guess what? He was number one until we brought in another guy in 2014 who billed 500. And then that person was the stud. And then we brought in another young man in 2017 who billed 800. And these were numbers that were unheard of. We didn't even think it was possible till we brought in a young lady in 2020 who eventually became our vice president of legal search, who became a $1.5 million biller. And so I think there's a common misconception that when you're early on, you got to get it right. I don't necessarily subscribe to that. You just need to fucking hire someone.
Yeah.
And then based on what they do wrong and what they do right, you're going to get better on the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one.
That's good learning. I think people get seized up by that. And a lot of folks I've run into have made the mistake, and this is a mistake, of potentially like hiring their nephew, their brother-in-law, their some relative. And it's like, that can be an awkward situation that you gotta,
I'll tell you, it's never a mistake to hire those people early on. Okay. Because these are people that you can trust, people that trust you. There's an element of rapport or credibility. The mistake is not firing them when you realize that they're just not good enough to get you to the next level, right? And so there takes a certain type of person that's going to take you from zero to 1 million. But it takes a different person to get you from 1 million to 10 million. And it takes a different person to get you from 10 million to 50 million, right? And so many people, they hire their brother-in-law and call him the vice president. And he was a good VP of a $1 million company, but he's not qualified to be the VP of a $20 million company. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's where it becomes fuzzy, is whenever they give them a little bit more too high of compensation, or they become too emotionally invested in those folks and they don't have the discipline to let them go in order to top grade them for the next caliber of candidate, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And my little brother's worked for me for 12 years.
Okay.
And, he's a serviceable employee. He's our operations manager today. And he got a sweetheart deal when we hired him way back in 2012, right? And if I had to replace him today, I could probably hire someone at a third of the cost. But guess what? He's my little brother, right? And, that didn't inhibit my growth, because I came in and brought in people above him in order to scale to get to the next level.
Yes, for sure. So when you're thinking about these folks that you want to hire, I mean, I see on your website here, you've got these kind of, things that are deal busters for you, I would say, are, you got your vision, you got excellence, professionalism, resilience, gratitude, coachable, which is interesting, inquisitive, competitive, Are those, how did you come up with those values? And is that how you apply, is that what you apply to your potential candidates?
Man, I'll tell you that in 2017, we implemented a system called EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System.
Mm-hmm.
And that really kind of laid the groundwork to transform the business entirely. And from 2017 to 2018, we turned over about 90% of the company, and that gave us the opportunity to be very consistent with regards to interviewing, hiring, coaching, and firing to the core values, right? To where there was no, this is the way that we've always done it mentality, right? Because we could constantly become a better version of ourselves each and every year, right? And over the years, our mission, our vision, and our values have kind of matured to be a little bit more congruent with what our identity was, right? In the past, we probably threw, company happy hours and team building events at night where people fraternized. Well, at our company size now, the company doesn't pay for alcohol, right? We are hyper focused on building an awesome culture, but that doesn't mean we need to go out and do shots together at happy hour after work anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yes.
when you talk about our values, I would really say that's been kind of the lifeblood of the organization, because it's provided a tremendous amount of clarity on who it takes in order to be considered an A player or even a B player on the Encore team. And if somebody doesn't exhibit those values, it has nothing to do with the revenue that they generate. They're just not a good part of the team. We got to get them off the bus, right? And it becomes a hell of a lot easier, Warren, to have tough conversations with people whenever I don't say, hey, John, you're sucking. We're going to put you on a performance improvement plan. I say, hey, look, you didn't exhibit professionalism. You weren't inquisitive on that deal. You weren't grateful because of that opportunity, right? You're showing a lack of resilience. Hey, your coachability is in question. It becomes way more of a business conversation and not just a personal attack on somebody's character.
And people know what winning looks like and what excellence looks like and what it doesn't look like. And it's very crystal clear, correct?
Dude, I'm telling you, every single meeting that we have, we talk about the values. You look at our marketing collateral, it's all about the values. You look at the awards we win at the end of the year. It doesn't have to do with your revenue that you generate. Who won the Resilience Award, the Gratitude Award, the Professionalism Award, the Coachable Award, right? These are the people that are waving the Encore flag, right? Your revenue that you generate, hey, that contributes to your income. But who are the people that we highlight? Who are the people that win Employee of the Month? These are the core value leaders. That's the type of consistency and authenticity that we carry from the top down, what breeds the winners in this organization.
That's brilliant. And I'm sure it just overflows right into how how you interact with your clients, potential candidates, all the way through the organization, correct?
Yeah, you talk about candidates, I'll tell you that every company's culture and values is different, right? Just because inquisitive and coachable might be a core value of mine doesn't mean it's the same core value that Elon Musk has at Tesla, right?
Yes.
And it's perfectly okay for us to all be different, but I think the core commonality between any successful organization is you got to be consistent, right?
Yes.
I can't accept behavior from that person and then not accept behavior from this person, right? Just because I don't like the color of their face, right? Or their religion or their sexual preference, right? You have to be authentic, you have to be consistent, and you have to be willing to lose toxicity and not accept mediocrity in order to elevate to the next level.
That's right. And and if you let down on one of those people, they just become words on a page.
100%. Mm-hmm. There's so many companies that sacrifice their own values each and every day because they try to protect revenue. And it breaks my heart, man, because, if they only cut out that cancer, they might have to take 1 or 2 steps back, but that breeds in a massive opportunity for them to step 10 steps forward for sure.
And the cancer that you're talking about, if it's an employee with a bad attitude or inconsistency in how they treat their people or whatever that is, I always think it's like the iceberg. Like the stuff you see on the top is less than a third of what you see under what is underneath the water. Like it just grows if you don't get rid of it.
100%, man. And you know, it's funny because we started to do when we started to let go of the people, when we started to really do progressive discipline and coach people out of the organization, it's funny when people left, it's like their team would be like, oh yeah, that person was doing X, Y, and Z or this. It's like, why the hell didn't you tell me before? You know?
Yes.
And it was that iceberg mentality, you know, where it's like, if it was their supervisor or somebody that they thought was superior to them based on their tenure or their production level, maybe their teammates didn't feel comfortable bringing that to them, you know?
It's so right, and it's happened to me time and time again with employees and team members. So tell me about inquisitive. How do you keep the culture of inquisitive? Because that can be one that can be a word on a page, depending on how you handle it. So I'm curious about that one specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. So inquisitive actually is our newest core value, to be quite honest. And so before we just had the 6, and we were in an executive offsite one time, and we were identifying what is the unique characteristic that separates all of our A players from our B players, right?
Interesting.
And we were looking at, you know, you talk about the analogy of like Chiefs and Indians, right? You got to have the followers, and then you got to have, right, the people that are like innovators and fearless and enterprisers and commercializers. And we knew that the people that were A players of what we define, they sought to understand the why behind the what, right? So instead of just saying like, hey, this week, you know, we're going to call private equity and venture capital firms to see if they're hiring, right?
Sure.
Well, a good A player would be like, yep, sounds great. Just out of curiosity, why is that the priority for us to focus on this week, Jeremy? Right? Oh, I'm glad you asked. Right? You know, let me talk to you about debt financing and this and this and this and this and utilizing mezzanine debt and commercializing this and business valuations being up while this. And they're like, oh, wow, that makes sense. And so then if they understood the why, then they could communicate that to their clients, to their candidates, right? To their portfolio hiring managers, right? And so the point that I'm making is by showcasing how Evan was inquisitive and how that won him this big deal, how Christina was inquisitive and how that won this big deal, and how all these other early to mid-career associates aspired to be these senior leaders in the organization. And then we highlight how they were inquisitive and how that helped elevate their game. Now they know I need to focus on flexing that muscle in order to get my career to the next level. And so I'm telling you, man, it's almost like, you know, going to the gym and you know, these people that are newbies in the gym that have only been there 6 months, and they say, well, how do I become that person? And you go, oh, well, that person introduced this supplement into their diet. And so just by cutting this out and introducing this, that's what took them to the next level. And then they're like, wow, I'm so glad that I know that now. Because my leadership team equips me for the recipe for success. They don't just say fucking make more calls, like every other fucking sales manager does. You know, it's like, no, man, do this. Completely work this into your game, dude.
Yes.
You know?
100%. That's brilliant. Okay.
That's how we worked it in, man. Inquisitive has been a game changer for us, dude.
Yes.
Ask 5 whys. And me as a leader, I'm not offended whenever I give somebody fucking direction and then they ask me why. I don't feel like I'm threatened. What do you mean why? I asked you to just do it. No.
Yes.
Inquisitive is a core value, man.
Yes.
Great job asking me why. I would love to tell you.
Yes.
And that carries through in my relationship with my kids, with my girlfriend. Hey, why is the best fucking word in the dictionary, dude? Because then it's like machine learning. You become way more effective after you understand the why.
I love it. Okay, so you are recruiting these top tier folks. What is the number one? And I think I know the answer, but I want to ask the question anyway.
Yeah.
What's the number one reason they are looking or considering leaving where they are?
Man, I'll tell you, it's a completely different answer based on the role, based on the geography, based on gender, based on industry. There's so many variables
Okay.
that contribute, right? If we're recruiting a salesperson, 9 times out of 10, it's income potential, right? You know, if there's a guy that's got a 150K base, but if he hits his quota, he's getting a 20% bonus. Now he's at 180. That guy will leave and go take a 120K base if he gets 2% of revenue that he produces. And now if he hits his quota, he's making 400,000, right? So it's not just salary. There's a lot of variables that go into it, right?
Yes.
Sometimes if I'm an engineer, sometimes I want to work on, challenging technologies that are innovating and changing the world, right? I mean, there's probably a lot of people that left the automotive industry and wanted to go into the semiconductor space because the technologies were just a little bit more innovative, right? How many people took pay cuts and left Google or Meta in order to go into industries where they're utilizing AI and machine learning and trailblazing new industries where they could do more meaningful work. You see what I'm saying? And so there's quite a few people, especially in dual income households, where spouses are willing to take a 20 to 30% pay cut if their employer offers them a flexible schedule or the opportunity to get their kids off the school bus every day, right? You see what I'm saying? And so I think as recruiters, it's important to know what your client is willing to offer in order to get an A player, and then tailor that message when you go to market, because it's not always money. It's not always job title. It's important to match what A is willing to offer and what B wants to buy, and then pairing those together.
And maybe even the unique selling proposition this company has. That could be culture. It could be the experience.
Sometimes it's who you report to, man. I tell you, there's, there. I've stolen people from big four accounting firms that are making 140, right? And then I recruit them in-house into industry making 140, leaving this big, sexy company on their resume just because they report to the CFO now. Hey, look, man, this is a great learning opportunity for you to advance your career. That way, when you leave this company in 3 years, you're going to go be the CFO somewhere.
Yes.
How long would it take if you stayed there to get to that level? Oh, shit.
Yes.
Not possible.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's important as a headhunter to really know what you're selling, why you're selling it, and who you're selling it to. Because if all I do is just check resumes from applications, I'm no better than the internal HR team, right? Of them posting job opportunities. And so it's important for us as headhunters to recognize that we are matchmakers. That's what we do.
That's cool. I love it. So tell me about biggest obstacle you've overcome.
Oh man, there's so many. I would say, going through a divorce in 2018 and finalizing it in 2019 and coming out on the other side of that and recognizing that even though it caused a tremendous amount of pain and suffering for myself, for my family, that it probably was the best thing for us to all happen in our lives, right?
Okay.
For me to see the silver lining and take that opportunity to double down and invest in my business growth, right? And so I would say that the divorce was probably the biggest obstacle that I've ever overcome, for sure.
Wow. And how do you have is it mindset? Like how do you how do you get up and crank through these obstacles?
I think it's important to recognize that every single opportunity that you lose something, there's a learning experience in that, right? I've gone through failed relationships, and it's been important for me to understand, where did I fail, right? What could I have done wrong, as opposed to have a victim mentality and point the finger at the other person, right? Because I think in each and every relationship, whether it's an employee, whether it's a spouse, a romantic partner, a friendship, what could I have done better? And sometimes you have to change your behavior and some of the things that you value, or sometimes it's important to recognize that, hey, that person didn't really serve me in the first place. And it's okay that they're no longer here. Right. And so I would say not having a victim mindset, taking every losing opportunity as a learning experience, and pivoting in order to become closer to what it is that's really going to elevate me personally and take me to the next level.
That's great. I love the non-victim mindset and ownership of every relationship definitely has two people involved in it, right?
Yeah.
So we can say it's 199 or 99 and 1, but there's always a little bit of responsibility.
Yeah, man. And when I'm saying relationship, that's, with your kids, with your employees, with your mentors, with your peers, your competitors, your spouses, right? I mean, it's all about relationship development. And one of the key things for me over the last 3 years is really been investing and working with my life coach, right? Who probably works with me on 60% personal life, relationships, mindset, mentality, and 40% business.
Okay.
That's been transformative in leveraging that individual as my accountability partner to not only identify what are my blind spots, right? But that's actually going to hold me accountable to doing what I say that I'm going to do. Because, you give a guy a divorce and a couple $1,000,000 in his pocket and let him loose into the wild with no accountability now, right? I could have caused some pretty major fucking destruction, right? To myself and to others.
Yes.
And so it was important to have that kind of accountability partner to keep me grounded for sure.
I love that. It's funny. Coaching doesn't have to be, we have a thing we call BFO, it's blinding flashes of the obvious. Sometimes it's that and it's accountability. It's stuff that you already knew that maybe you stopped doing, or you just know you got to report in next week and tell somebody how you did. Sometimes it's that simple, right?
Yeah, but there's so many people that conceal information, right? That aren't willing to tell their coach about their battle with infidelity or their battle with internet pornography or the lawsuit that they had against them on certain harassment claims and things of that nature. And so I think that one thing that EOS did for us was created this transparency culture, right? To where it's something that I've implemented in my life, right? Like if everybody just knows all the facts, and then it kind of like your decisions and the strategies that you implement and utilize kind of make sense, right? As long as everyone knows all the different variables that contributed to it. I mean, I've been dating a young lady, for the last 4 months that I truly believe is my future wife. And, it was funny because on our first date, I told her, hey, I went to a legacy planning seminar in February. It was a game changer, eye-opening experience for me. And coming out of that, I had tremendous amount of clarity that I wanted to have more children, and the values that I saw in my children, led to my legacy. It wasn't my business. It wasn't my wealth. And I really admire my children's academic prowess and athletic abilities. And so the reason why I'm pursuing you is because you're President's Club, Dean's List, high honors graduate from a top tier university and a D1 athlete. And so those are qualities that I'm looking for in my future wife. Are you interested? Well, hey, that's a fucking lot. But I'll tell you, man, it's a lot different than showing up on a fucking first date and saying, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite restaurant?
Yeah.
I don't even know what people talk about on first dates now. They probably just go to an Astros game and talk about bullshit.
Yeah.
I do everything with intention, man, even including the conversations I have with my kids.
That's amazing. Isn't it fun how transparency, besides being super efficient and accountable, also builds trust and humility?
No one's ever accused me of being humble, Warren. Hey, no, but I get what you're saying for sure.
Right?
But you can't be afraid to lose something that's good. I'll tell you something about relationships. Man, I once dated a girl, gorgeous girl, and she brought me aside after the 7th date, and she was like, Jeremy, there's zero doubt that we have chemistry, but I don't believe that chemistry means that we are compatible. And I think there's a clear difference between chemistry and compatibility. And I tended to agree with her, right? But I think all too often we fall in love with the idea of someone, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a business partnership, whether it's a, you know, whatever. And we don't really look at the compatibility component, right? You know, and it's
Yes.
like, you know, if we can be honest with ourselves, it makes it a lot easier to walk away from something that's not going to take us to the next level.
Well, and if we're optimistic people, we think, well, we can change this employee a little bit when we bring them on, or we can change this potential spouse when we bring them on, or whatever. It's like, nope, that's the best. That theoretically is the best they're ever going to be, is during
And
that.
you got to let them go to another organization where their values are congruent with the organization so they can thrive. Like, you're holding them back by fucking keeping them in your ecosystem.
Yes.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, and like you said, it goes back to our business. If we have our business values and we know our non-negotiables and we know where we're going, we can determine fit pretty quick. Just like when you walk into if you're looking at colleges for your kids, or you're looking at different businesses, and you walk into the building or the campus, in 30 minutes, you get a pretty good vibe about what that place is about, I think. And it starts from the leadership, always.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
It's not what you say, it's how you act, it's what you actually do, it's whether those things are congruent. And if they are, and then back to the transparency piece, that actually can be a super, super valuable tool in building trust, and people will run through walls for you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what's your business look like when it's finished?
Man, I tell you, what do you mean finished? Right? I don't, there's no finish. You know, I'll tell you, I have a lot of fun being the CEO of Encore Search Partners. I love solving complex problems for my clients and friends. I love the respect and admiration that I get from my peers in the community. You know, the business has gotten to a point where it's very sustainable from a profitability standpoint. I've got a great team that provide a very awesome, amazing client-centric experience, right? And so I don't think that I'm ever going to be finished with this business. I mean, if somebody wrote me a check for $10 million today to buy it off of me, that's not really life-changing money, right? So I think that I'm really excited about creating a brand that people are proud of, that I'm proud of, that my children are proud of, that my spouse is proud of. And if that means that we remain 40 to 50 employees for the next 5 years, I think that's perfectly okay. You know, just because we don't get to 100 employees doesn't mean that I failed, you know, as long as we are our three things that we stand for, right? Our why is we want to be the best, we want to close deals, and we want to make money. And if at any point we're not doing all three of those things in tandem, then I would consider myself a failure. And so I could say, while we may not be the biggest, we damn sure are the best. And I know we close deals and we damn sure make money. And so it doesn't mean I'm a failure if I don't hit that revenue target of 9 figures now that we've hit 8. And I think that it took me a while to get there, man, because when I was young, I was just constantly chasing money. And then I realized that it was always going to be a moving target, right? When I was young and I wanted to make 100 grand, and I made 100 grand when I was 22, and that didn't fulfill me. And now I wanted to make 250, and I made 250, and then I wanted to make 500, and then I wanted to make $1 million, you know? And then it's like, why am I hitting this number and I'm still wanting more? Why can't I just wake up and smell the roses and be grateful for what I have? And so when you say, when it's all finished, man, to me, it's all about the way people talk about me in the community, right?
Yes.
The way my kids light up when I walk into the door. You know, it's them being excited about bringing their kids to grandpa's house and the stories that they tell about me, right? The character and integrity in which my spouse carries herself in the community, and the respect and admiration that I have from people who I respect and admire, which has changed over the years. You know, I would say that's probably more important than any type of currency in the bank, for sure.
I think that's beautiful. And I would also add your team and helping them grow and realize their dreams is another really cool byproduct of what you do, and it is literally a life-changing, world-changing.
And you know what? In order for us to do that, Warren, and I hope entrepreneurs hear this, is if you want to create an amazing mechanism that can help people achieve their dreams, you have to create roster spots for opportunity. So you have to constantly bring new people in and continually top grade. And so when you look at that bottom 20%, you got to get them off the bus. And it doesn't mean you're a fucking asshole. It means you're bringing in new blood and you give them an opportunity to rise to the top.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? If the New England, or if the Denver Broncos just said John Elway's our quarterback and he's always going to be our quarterback, they probably wouldn't be winning a lot of games if 58-year-old John Elway was taking the field right now, right? But you got to constantly bringing in this young talent, right? And young doesn't mean age; it just means new people in the organization in order to, number one, keep the other people a little bit honest, right? And be like, I don't want that new guy to come in and steal my fucking job.
Yes.
Right? So then they hold themselves a little bit more accountable and don't get complacent. And then you'd be surprised that when you hire people that fit the core values on what they're capable of, if you can blend work ethic, right? Inquisitiveness, coachability, professionalism, resilience, gratitude, excellence, man, I tell you, people might surprise you for sure.
And that extra competition and also I think outside perspective, diversity of thought is something that is super valuable when you're building any kind of organization. To continue to bring in that, shake it up a little bit all the time, and you're going to end up with a much better work environment, product, success rate, all the things.
And you know what's funny is it's not even a shakeup if you tell your company in the quarterly town halls, hey, every quarter we're going to let go of the top 20%. That way we can constantly bring in new talent in order to elevate everybody to get to the next level. And so this is just part of our culture. Now, little Jimmy doesn't feel bad about getting laid off because he knew it was coming.
Yeah. No surprise.
He's hugging us and he's still double tapping the company's Instagram post because he loves the company, even though he doesn't work there anymore.
That's
because
amazing.
All we did was we did what we said we were going to do. That's all we did.
Yeah. We said we were going to do this. We did it. It's not offensive. It's just reality. Yeah. That's great. Okay. Any other, I've kept you for a while. Any other last words of wisdom for entrepreneurs? Because you've given us a lot and that's been valuable, but anything else in your mind that you just want to throw out there?
I mean, yeah, I am ready to go, man, because I'm playing in a pickleball game at 6 p.m. And so words of wisdom, entrepreneurs, if you want to do something social, that's fitness oriented, right? That's competitive, that you can play at any weight level, fitness level, athletic level, age. Pickleball has completely changed my life, man. And so that's my little nugget that I'm going to leave you with.
I love it. I love it. There is something to be said for not doing the thing all day long, every day, and shaking it up, whether that's athletic or music or whatever, to completely take your brain and go this way is, I think, invaluable for people, for creativity.
100%, man.
Competition.
It satisfies me in so many different categories, and having the focus and discipline to go run on a treadmill for an hour, that induces a vomit experience when I think about that.
Yes.
But I can burn more calories by playing 7 pickleball games in that same hour, man, and have a shit ton of fun. And you don't need alcohol in order to do it. I mean, it is a fun experience.
That is awesome. Jeremy, first of all, congratulations on running a really highly successful company. And I love your values and your mission and vision and stick-to-itness about how your culture and what you are about is paramount to your employees, your customers, your team, your legacy. That's a beautiful thing. So thank you so much. That's
awesome, man. Thanks for having me on, Warren.
Absolutely. Cheers.
All right, bud.